what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to play a little game, right? I'm going to ask each of these gentlemen to introduce themselves, but I also want them to tell me what their favourite AI-related movie is, and then I want you guys to tell me which one's the best by voting, okay? So, who's going to win this one? I'm going to go with WALL-E, and I was explaining why WALL-E's my favourite film, because I think it's the most accurate portrayal of where humanity's going. We're all going to become fat, lazy, and robots and AI are going to do everything for us, and we're just going to waste away. So WALL-E for me, and I am such a skeptic if you can't tell. Gentlemen, what is your favourite AI movie? And also, who are you?
Hi, I'm Saqib Shaikh, software engineer at Microsoft, where I work on how can we use artificial intelligence to help people in general, but also specifically people with vision impairments. And in terms of the movie, I had also chosen WALL-E, but maybe for completely different reasons. For me, I skip right to the end, where it's how do humans and AI work together to make a better world? And if you put the two together, it's better than the sum of the parts.
Okay, WALL-E again.
So I'm Roger Highfield, one of the directors of the Science Museum. I used to be the science editor of the Daily Telegraph for 2 decades. I used to edit New Scientists. I've written a lot about AI over the years and got interested through, in fact, you were upstairs, you might have seen Will Trender of Imperial College doing the first AI test of human intelligence, which I've been pretty interested in. In terms of the movie, in the Science Museum last year, we had an amazing event with Factory Floor, the electronic duo doing a new soundtrack for Metropolis. When you see Metropolis on an IMAX screen, Fritz Lang's 1927 vision with the kind of evil Maria, the machine and Mensch. It's an amazing film, still, you know, almost a century later. It also sort of shows humanity, human beings as cogs in this great machine. And I think there's a very interesting theme to think about as the relationship between us and tools goes all the way back to us using flint tools. The Industrial Revolution, I think people became almost mechanical. I think in a strange way with AI, we're getting a better relationship with machines, and if you look towards the future, people often have us pitched against machines, but actually I think we're beginning to merge with machines through things like, you know, your iPhone is kind of an extension of you, things like cochlear implants, retinal implants, and so on. So I think the future of humanity is cyborg, definitely, not being exterminated by AI. There we are, so just calm down, guys.
And finally.
Okay, I'm Chris Russell. I'm a Turing Fellow at the Alan Turing Institute, and I work in machine learning and computer vision. And computer vision is when we try and teach computers to understand images and videos and think about them in the same way people do. My favourite AI film, I'm going to pick something bad, and I'm going to go for 2001 with Hal. And I think it's great. I mean, it's a cinema, it's a masterpiece in its own right. But what I really like about it is, for me, the key to AI is something which can learn and adapt and change to situations. And Hal does this horrifically, but you actually see this kind of like growth, and it's a real character making decisions and being driven forward. And this is something missing from pretty much every other depiction of AI. And the other thing I really like about it is it's a really good example of if you take a system which is trained on one particular domain and you move it into the real world, somewhere else you make it do something else that goes horrifically wrong. And this is something we can all learn from.
So you have 3 films to choose from. Who is choosing 2001 as the best depiction of AI? Okay, we'll probably go maybe 8. I'm so winning this. Who is going to go with Metropolis? Oh, it's too easy.
Come on.
And who's going with WALL-E? Win. And that is the end of the panel. Thank you very much for coming.
But it would need the good one versus the bad one.
No. Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to ask that question initially was we are here, the conference is Advertising and Beyond, and we are the Beyond part of this. We are going to talk about how AI can help goods and talk about the altruism possibilities of AI. And I feel AI in the mainstream is very much thought about killer robots. Nobody chose Terminator. If anyone had bingo on Terminator, we've said that about 5 minutes in. And I think it still causes fear in people. So if it can be a force for good. How do you guys think that could change in terms of the perception? Is there anything that needs to be done now that you think should be happening?
I think things will change a lot when autonomous cars take off. I think that's a real example of AI that is going to be very disruptive indeed, and that's just around the corner. So I think for me, that will be a very big example of AI changing the way that we live. But I want to emphasize that all the discussions we've had today have really been about narrow AI. We haven't got general AI, which is really the stuff of the Terminator and so on. And we at the Science Museum, we developed a big exhibition called Robots. We have this big collection of humanoid robots. If you see the real capability of a humanoid robot, we had Atlas just earlier on. They're pretty pathetic, really. Sorry, forgive me, Boston Dynamics, but they're just not. They're just not that great, and AI is actually in a very similar state, great for optimization as a tool, but we're way, way away from, Ex Machina and all the kind of really smart AI robotics that people dream about.
I mean, it's easy to be negative about it, isn't it? What do you guys have any examples of proper AI that is already making a difference out there that everyone should be more aware of? If you haven't seen the Robot Museum, is it still on?
It's just finished at Manchester. It's going to tour around the world, actually. So, alas, but
I recommend it.
But I think we had lots of examples this morning, with Netflix and recommendations, and your TomTom or whatever, downloading latest information and updating your route and traffic. I mean, it's embedded. But we were joking just beforehand about any time AI does something successfully, people just think it's another boring algorithm. They don't think of it as AI. It's got to be kind of computer plus surprise equals AI. If you don't have the surprise, then it ain't AI. But anyway, yeah.
So it needs to be sexier then, does it? Sexy AI! I didn't expect to say that today. Do you guys think in order to change perception, then we do need it needs PR spin. We need to get out there and get more people talking in a positive fashion.
I don't know. So this is always the problem with the news, that you only ever hear the bad stuff, right? And no one talks about, oh, my phone works really well today, right? Because it just doesn't matter in some big. But everyone is now used to AI. It's like part of all of our lives, right? Every time you type something into the computer, it goes through Google. This is a search algorithm. There's AI under the hood, making sure it's relevant. They say Google Maps or whatever. It's an AI of some form, basically. And everyone is just used to it, and they're happy when it works, and they complain when it doesn't. And I think that's good. That's where we want to be going. And it's the same with the driverless cars. Like, it's going to change the world. But you'll never hear about, oh, we travelled 1 million miles and no one got run over. It's the one time someone gets hit that will make the news. Everyone.
Many things just creep up so gradually, like each development which turns up, as say in your iPhone or in your daily life. They're remarkable technologies. They used to be AI, and now they're just every day.
Do you think people appreciate that yet? I get the belief that people just kind of adopt things, but they don't actually know exactly what it is that they're using. So do you think people know about where the AI is already in general society?
I don't think they do, but it probably reflects the fact that narrow AI is a kind of glorified tool, and it's only just now, I saw a presentation a couple of weeks ago about these things called stack GANs, generative adversarial networks, where they were beginning to do quite spooky things like create synthetic celebrities from banks of, I think there's an NVIDIA paper that's coming up. And there was another thing that showed that you could actually write a picture caption and it would generate a picture from it. And for me, general AI that can actually be truly creative, so rather than being like a glorified lookup table and sort of saying, I've encountered this kind of, this group of circumstances, and this circumstance reminds me of this, and that's the solution to the problem. An AI that's put in a completely novel environment, which would have to be a general AI, and can figure out what to do and do the right thing, that will, I think that will surprise a lot of people. And then maybe we might get a bit more worried about the existential threats and other things, but I'm not worried about that at the moment.
somebody was telling me one of the benefits of having synthetic celebrities is they can't crash their car twice over the limit and then get caught from a Saturday night presenting gig. So that's the one positive I can think about those. So an obvious example or a sector that we can talk about where AI is probably already making a massive difference is healthcare. Can you guys talk a bit about what you're seeing happening there already and where that's likely to go in the next few years?
I think there's so much interesting work in this space, whether that's diagnostics, to figure out what's wrong with you, or one of my colleagues is working on even diagnosing cancer. I think that's just totally going to take off. And the other side to the health side is my own work on how can we use computer vision, machine learning to assist someone with a visual impairment. And it's not just people with visual impairments, it's also so much broader. So I'm very optimistic for that future.
If you read the Lord's report on AI that came out this week, that talks about healthcare applications being big use. And again, I think with good quality data in very tight uses, so with things like MRI scans, ultrasound scans, X-rays and so on, spotting tumours, spotting something unusual, I think AI is going to be tremendously powerful. There'll be some quick wins. When it comes to the elderly patient presenting with a constellation of strange symptoms, where frankly the medical establishment hasn't got a clue how to treat these people effectively, and there's lots of strange interactions between the 15 drugs that they're on and so on, I think we're a long way off AI really being able to unpick that.
Where one of the things that I've been reading is that AI could actually help in terms of we might lose the need for doctors, so they need to go to medical school for 7 to 8 years. We might lose that, and what we'll need is more care staff and support staff, because AI can predict and also can also tell people what's wrong with them. Do you believe that? Is that likely to happen?
Well, a lot of people have got faith in big data, but remember, the number of cells in your body, there's more than I seem to remember stars in the Milky Way, When we talk about big data, you need colossal amounts of data to model the human body. We tend to collect it at certain times, so people talk about the power of the genome, but of course genes are winking on and off in your body the whole time. The body's a dynamic thing. So I think I think the thing that's missing in medicine at the moment is there's not a great deal of theory, biological theory. I think you need big theory as much as you need big data. I mean, if you look at something like weather forecasting, let's say you want to forecast how a patient reacts to a drug. Weather forecasting works off having very good computer models based on a real understanding of the way the atmosphere works, with a lot of real-time data coming in from satellites. And that enables us to look a few days ahead. It would be great to do that in the human body, and I think we've got a bit of the data. We haven't got enough understanding, so I still think we're a bit of a way off from doing. But I'm being a bit pessimistic here, so maybe my colleagues think I'm talking cobblers. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I think is really interesting about medicine is how hard it is basically for us to do it properly. And medical trials, they tend to miss out on a lot of the important stuff and what's going on. For a good medical trial, what you do is you take a person who's as healthy as possible but has one thing wrong with them, and then you say, does this drug help with the one thing? And that's great, that gives you some information about what's going on. When you tend to deploy it in the real world and you actually give people these drugs, what you find is that, okay, someone's had a heart attack, that means they're more likely to be elderly. Therefore, when you give them anti-clotting drugs, they're more likely to fall over. And because of this, they're more likely to bruise badly, and they get complications, go into hospital, and they actually die because you're giving them the wrong medicine. And so actually having big data and being able to do these huge sort of studies across the whole population, it's really important, and it's game-changing. I'm not sure it's necessarily AI, right? It's some kind of statistics, maybe. It doesn't really matter, right? We're using computers and we're using big data to think about the problems in a way we haven't been able to think about them before. And there's a lot of things like this, and it's just really easy, low-hanging fruit. It's like we're not replacing doctors, we're just telling them things which they don't know about yet, and we're making them better at their jobs.
Right, because AI, at the end of the day, at least for the foreseeable future, it's a tool that you can use, and a doctor can use that to be even more efficient, rather than actually replacing a doctor.
And what about, oh, sorry, please.
No, I was going to say, the AI test of human intelligence that you could try at the lunch break if you want to. That's really come from a growing recognition, certainly in medical studies, that a lot of research that's published, this is Ioannidis' work, is actually wrong or statistically underpowered or whatever. So there's a so-called reproducibility crisis in science. And there's a recognition now that things like AI could help remove some of the subjectivity of science to understand things like intelligence, understand how the body works, understand brain function and so on. So I think in that way AI can have a very big effect as well.
Yeah, very likely. What about, I find it quite funny that humanity is going to teach AI ethics, because who the hell are we to teach anyone on ethics as a race? But how do you think AI will evolve once all the data that we can possibly feed into the machines and it has learned? How does it work ethically, do you think? Can it?
Yeah, so this is something I actually work on. So I'm a Turing Fellow in algorithmic fairness. And one of the problems is if you take biased and racist data, right, and you train your algorithm to replicate the data, it just learns to be racist, right? And then the question is like, well, okay, given that there's some signal in here, but it's distorted by all this like racial bias and stuff, is there a way we can actually eliminate it and take it out and sort of like come up with a better decision, basically, which doesn't have the same sort of like social baggage that the data came with originally.
So therefore you're educating it and then having to re-educate it again? Is that what you're saying?
You're saying like, well, as you learn from this data, be aware it's wrong in this particular way and therefore don't overfit and don't learn to be racist.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess like a famous example is like if you look at police stop data in the US, right? And it's like, on one hand, they do stop actual criminals. On the other hand, they also stop a lot more black people than they should be. And so if you train an algorithm to mimic the behavior of the police, it will just learn to stop black people, which is really what we don't want to do. And therefore, you need to go, okay, but the police, they do their job as well, and there's something in there, and we need to pull out the signal somehow.
We had a great discussion at Science Museum between Bill Gates and Will.i.am about this, and Will.i.am was really fascinating making this point. Also, just saying, I mean, it's a bit tragic, we're an all-male panel, we really need a properly diverse panel, and he said, look, we've already had the comment that there are no male data scientists, we desperately need diversity baked into, the research side of AI, people creating this stuff, so they're aware these sorts of issues are front and centre of what they do, and they don't just lazily take distorted data and come up with distorted projections from it, as the stock data suggests.
So it feels what you're saying to me is AI is flawed in some ways at this point, which is scary if true.
It's just the old-fashioned thing, rubbish in, rubbish out.
AI is very much like, you're teaching it, maybe we could draw the parallel with teaching a child, that it's going to learn from the examples, the experiences that it sees. And so I think it comes down to how can you show it the representative inputs that will teach it about the diversity, about whether that be about gender or just about the world at large. So you have to make sure that all your data reflects your actual users. And at Microsoft, there's a number of people working on this, like how do you make sure that your algorithms aren't biased, and one of the keys to that is having a diverse data set.
But it sounds as though then AI will create its own set of values. So we're going to try and give it our values, and then try and it's creating its own interpretation of those. I mean, it's quite a scary
the problem
thought.
is that it really is a mirror, right? It's just like you hold up something to the world and it shows you what's bad. And it's like if the world is, a miserable and unfair place, then you get something back which exploits this.
Yeah.
And then, so on top of that, you have to think of ways like how can I add like values, and how can I, basically it's like how can I make the world a better place? And if we fix the world, then AI would be perfect and it would be unbiased and stuff. And we can't do that. So we're like, well, as a first step, can we make the AI a bit better, a bit fairer than what's out there, and then hopefully as that feeds back into the world, the whole place gets better. It's very aspirational and very...
Have any of you worked on AI in a disaster zone in terms of rescue? because robotics seem to be moving quite fast in that space, and I'm assuming AI is part of that development. Is that something any of you have looked at?
It's not something I've worked on at all.
Because that is when it has to make choices, I guess, and that's when the values would properly kick in. So that's sort of, I wondered if there was any examples anyone had seen on that front.
And people always talk about the driverless cars examples. So like if you've got a choice, like, do you want to run over a man or a small child?
Do you want to?
I think those discussions have to be framed in the right way because, you know, an AI can make a decision much more quickly than a board. You look at the death toll on the roads through human drivers. I think that's the right context to look at driverless car, not these wonderful trolley scenarios. You know, you've got your mum, you've got your best friend, you've got 16 nuns, an endangered panda. You know, what are you going to do?
She'll ask, what are you going to do? Which one would you have? I'm actually genuinely intrigued, I'll ask you that later. So, we don't have a lot of time left, and this is probably the biggest conversation we could have. What I'd quite like to find out though, and I'd actually quite like some of you guys to try and get one or two questions in, so I'll quickly ask one more question and then hopefully we can pull the audience in. But from your own point of view, what excites you most in this space then, when it comes to how AI will work in society in the future, what excites each of you most?
So speaking from a very personal sense, being blind myself, I'm super excited by how AI will, and computer vision specifically, will be able to help me interpret the world around me. And I think we have a video of some of the work we're doing if we have time to play that. But it's exciting to me, not just for blind people, but for disability overall. How can you leverage AI and teach these machines about the world around them and then convey them based on what your needs is? So someone who doesn't know a language, yes, we can translate, but then you can extend that to all sorts of disabilities and situations.
You want to talk about the video you were going to show them?
Okay, let's talk about the video. Okay, so part of my work at Microsoft is we're making an app which lets you hold up your phone and take a picture of the camera. So, and then it's sort of recognizing what's in that photo. So it can read me the text around me or do face recognition and tell me who I'm walking up to and guess their emotions and tell me if someone's like happy or sad. And it's just the beginning of this research, but it's incredible already how we can take this. And it can also describe scenes, and we're looking at so many other possibilities. And my sort of dream for this is, you know, as I'm walking around, there'll be something telling me what's going on in the same way that a friend would while I'm walking with them. And you know, someone who's hard of hearing might have an equivalent system explaining the sounds which are keep them, the doorbell ringing, the dog barking. But then you can, you know, extrapolate that to human society as a whole. That there's always something that we would like, that little agent, that little AI in our ear whispering about the world around us. So that's my big dream. But we have this iPhone app, which is at the very, very beginning of that, and it's called Seeing AI. Little plug, so you should check it out.
Seeing AI, yeah, right. Actually, I want to quickly cover as well, we need to talk about the replacement issue. AI replacing people, where do each of you stand on that? Is that a real threat, and what do we do with it?
Well, if you look at headlines about predictions about automation and factories, you know, over the century, there's always been big headlines, you know, screaming blue murder about job losses. But of course, I think reality has been, which people have alluded to this morning, is that the jobs have just changed in character. And you know, automation has got rid of the repetitive, boring jobs. And I suppose AI is going to knock out those kind of clerical, mundane jobs, or tweaking CRMs to get the best opening rate for emails and so on. And you know, we can do more interesting things, hopefully.
But is education keeping up with the needs? I feel as though there's a skill shortage on this front, and that's globally.
Yeah. I think we could be doing a lot more. I mean, certainly in the museum group, you know, we have 650,000 school kids coming through and visits each year. We're very aware of the need to inspire the next generation. I mean, particularly post-Brexit, the UK has got to be smarter than anywhere else. But in fact, you know, we were talking about AI ethics. I think the UK is a really interesting place in terms of AI ethics because Not only have we got amazing AI researchers, but if you look at the way that we've dealt with reproductive science technologies, IVF, babies, Louise Brown's going to be in the museum in a few weeks' time, 40 years old, 6 million IVFs, are they artificial intelligences? I don't know, discuss. But we have got this machinery through the Warnock Committee and the HFEA to regulate this leading edge technology. So Britain's absolutely awash with medical ethicists who think about these sorts of issues. So if you put them together with the AI community, I think really exciting things can happen here.
I thought you were going to say British AI like QE. I think we might have time for one question. Please, sorry, you were right up, almost right up there.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the seeing AI, which is amazing. I've seen before, but this issue of facial recognition, and Facebook just might be that they're now by default doing facial recognition on pictures of Facebook. If you aren't on Facebook, if you don't want to be recognised by an app, you don't want your face to be scanned, but they're automatically doing it anyway, and they're tracking you. What are the privacy implications for the system? It came from when Google Glass first came out. This idea that someone could be walking around with a camera all the time and just recording. You have a conversation with someone, but the Google Glass, was still recording you and recording your conversation. And you may not necessarily have been given permission for that. And where does that permission, where does that sit with AI systems, which really need to be able to absorb all the data all the time? But people don't want to have their data absorbed, their face recognized or whatever.
So privacy.
How do you manage that?
So I think that this is a big topic which ongoing we have to, we will decide as a society, as a legal system. Specifically on seeing AI, for example, we made the very conscious decision that we don't recognize anyone unless the other person very specifically opts in. And I think that's going to be a key. Also, when someone takes photos, I think it's important to separate the teaching of the AI from the using of the AI, or at least to make it very clear. So we separate them so that the photos you take don't necessarily go and get stored and used for training AI. So I think there are a bunch of these things that we have to figure out, and for now we're very cautious to make sure that privacy is maintained.
Do you have views on that?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's important to say is this is an intentional decision by Facebook, right? This is not part of the pipeline where they need this in order to do something else. It's just no, we want to track people. And it's a deliberate decision that this is what they want to do. And it's not a necessary part for any AI particularly. It's just this is useful for Facebook. And as such, I think a lot of it's going to come down to interactions between Facebook and the consumer, and the GDPR coming in and going well, you can still identify the person you've tracked all the way through, even if you don't know their name. And then when they turn up to you and they say, well, what records do you have on me? If they provide you with their face instead of their name, do you still have to answer? Do you still have to delete your data? These are all questions we need to go through and sort out.
I was asked to try and get us to lunch, so I will ask my last question, and it's a yes or no answer. No, maybe. It's yes or no. Do you think that WALL-E is the best depiction of AI? And will humanity become fat and lazy and dependent upon AI in the future? Yes or no? No, maybe.
For an easy life, I'll say yes.
Can I just do yes to the second one rather than wait for the first?
Which half?
The fat and lazy is, I think we're almost there already.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. And last word, yes or no?
Optimistic, yes.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much. Massive topic.